How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to that car vlog channel. My name is Andy and we're doing another video on this piece of crap, my 1994 Dodge Dakota SLT. I call it a piece of crap, but I love this thing. So in the previous video, which was quite long, so if you watched it all the way through, I truly commend you. So in that previous video, I did a whole head job on this engine. One brand new head, one resurfaced. I did a whole tear down and reassembly with some while you're in there parts. To get this thing running, and I did. I got this thing running pretty healthy. Now if you did watch the video, or if you want to go back and watch it, in this clip where I first started the engine up, you heard some lifter noise, was what it sounded like, a tick 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 tick. But as the oil pumped up into the system, that cleared right up and it went away. However, it's back. That was a really long start, not sure why. Now I trust you can hear that lifter noise pretty well. It did actually calm down here for a second, but here in a few minutes, it is going to pick back up and sound a little bit worse. I want to talk about why I don't think that's actually a new problem and what I propose to do about that problem. Okay, so as you can tell, I have a no oil pressure light and no oil pressure reading actually, which is a wee bit concerning. It's that lower gauge on the left there. And I did put a new oil pressure sensor switch on this thing because it was broken, like physically broken in two. So it's either a bad switch or I'm actually not getting any oil pressure. We're gonna get in close to the valve cover. I don't know how well it's coming through for y'all, but I'm starting to hear a little bit of clatter. So here's the story on the noise and why I don't think it's new. And it actually doesn't sound as bad as it did. If I kept it running, it would though. So shortly before this time last year, so a little over a year ago, in early May of 24, I was actually trying to get it home, which is about an hour from where it was parked at the time from where I work. And so I attempted to drive it home, and at this point it was already evident of what I thought to be a blown head gasket, which later turned out to be a cracked head. But I started noticing as I would drive along, if I was sitting at a stoplight or something, the engine would run fine, no noise. But then as I start to accelerate, oil pressure would just completely drop out. Come to a stop, it would come back a little bit, but I also started getting clattering noise, bad lifter sounding noise. So bad ticking noises. And so I'd shut it down, wait a few minutes, start it back up. It'd sound just fine, and I'd drive along a little ways again until it started doing that. Now, what I should have done was call the tow truck. We have roadside, and by the time I got to where it was concerning me, I would have been within towing range of a free tow. So that was my stupid. Anyway, like I said, every time I'd start making that noise again, that nasty lifter sounding noise, I'd just shut it down again, wait a few minutes, start it back up, it'd be quiet, and we'd go again. Now, I posed this question to the Facebook Dakota group that I'm a part of. And between everybody on there, plus a couple friends of mine who either are or were mechanics, they overwhelmingly say you're probably looking at an oil pump, pickup tube and screen at the least, but probably also a pump. Oh boy. And so I've got more parts, and yeah, apparently the camera doesn't like my little light either. Oh well. Anyway, we have more parts. We have an oil screen and pickup tube by Melling. We have a Melling oil pump. And we have a Felpro oil pan gasket. These oil pan gaskets are actually pretty expensive. They're almost $50. That's wild. Once again, thanks to my buddy that works in auto parts for helping me out with pricing on this, because that's a lot more money. Anyway, let's go see what this job is going to look like. The truck is a four-wheel drive. I don't imagine it's going to be very fun. Oh yeah, and my truck's not the only broken thing. You see how high my grass is? Yeah, my mower's on the list of broken things too. Ugh, all my things are broken. Look at that. don't know if you can tell, but that is high. All right, y'all, so if we get up underneath the front of the truck here, here's our front axle for a four-wheel drive. And there is the oil pan. See, it looks pretty simple, looks okay, it looks okay. There is a steering cross rod here, not a big deal. I'm absolutely forgetting the term for that, my bad, cross link. More bolts, there's a lot of bolts in this oil pan, and I'm trying like hell to aim the light correctly. There's a lot more bolts in this oil pan, but here's the problem. This thing. This axle is gonna be a problem. Either this front end has to be dropped, or that engine has to be raised enough to get that pan out of there. And I'm gonna have to sit down and figure out the best option for that. I've already had the CVs off of this before to rebuild the front end. It's not like I don't know what I'm doing. I could probably do that. And I think it's held on by 6 very big bolts. 2 of them are right there. 2 of them are right there. Where are the other ones? I don't forget where the other ones are. Oh, here's a couple right here. I think those are all the only 6 big bolts holding this axle up. So with the right tools, I can probably drop it down. I really don't want to, but I might still have to. I don't think I'll have to support the truck on stands to get up under here and work on the pan. I think I can do it with it on the ground. It's just barely high enough. I might still put it on stands, but we'll see. Basically, this video will come together as I figure out what I'm doing, because that's how I do car repairs. I learn what I'm doing as I go. But hey, I don't have to pay anybody to do it, and usually I get it done and it's done right. Okay, so let's officially get started on this job. First thing I gotta do is get these wheels off, because I'm gonna have to drop the axle, so I'm gonna have to undo a lot of stuff. I do need to drain the oil from the pan for the actual oil pan part of the job, but I'm gonna wait till I got this thing supported on stands, so I've already got the truck in the air already. A little bit of forward thinking as well. I'm gonna go ahead and take off these cotter pins and bust loose these CV axle nuts right here at the hubs, because these are very difficult to break loose or tighten really if the wheel's not on the ground. And I am going to have to most likely pull these CVs, so I want these nuts to go ahead and be busted loose before I lift the truck up in the air. As an example of the kind of thing that would absolutely happen to me and no one else, I busted a tip off of my needle nose just pulling the cotter pins out. Yeah, that tracks. That's my luck. Alright, so I got those axle nuts busted loose. They're not off, but they're busted loose enough for the impact to do what it's supposed to do. Let's go ahead and get this thing in the air and get those wheels off. Wheels are off. Now we're going to work on getting these CVs off. So I've already busted these axle nuts loose. I'll take them off the rest of the way with the impact. Now I do have to take off these flange bolts right here. These are 14mm. If you're working on an old Dodge product from the 90s, don't think you're only working with SAE. You'll probably be working with metrics too. Just have your whole toolbox on hand. Alright, all the flange bolts are out. That's them right there. That axle nut's been ripped off with the impact. Like I said, I loosened it earlier with the big ratchet. Now you just got to kind of pull outward on this CV flange here. Kind of outward and down. It will just drop right down. You just got to get a little bit of effort in there. Maybe a lot of effort. It'll come down. It's just gonna fight you. Once that CV is hanging down, just a nice whack here on the end of the shaft with a mallet. Maybe a few whacks, but still. If it was easy, it wouldn't be worth doing. Gotta find my big pry bar. That'd pull it out the rest of the way. And there's one CV out. Rinse and repeat on the other side. Them CV shafts are the only thing that got to come off to get this axle down. You can see the cross member and the front drive shaft are going to cause a problem interacting with each other. So, got to get that front shaft off. Best way to do that, just attack those 4 bolts. You got 4 of these bolts right here, 2 on each strap. Just attack those with a 3/8 and a long extension from behind. And here we go, and with just a little bit of pry bar action, there's the end of it. Just got to be able to pop this U-joint out of this yoke. And this part right here is actually made to slide back and forth a little bit. You can tell that because there's a grease fitting right here. So push that back in, and we should be able to clear this U-joint and this yoke once we go and drop this axle. Now, I think it actually is time to start breaking bolts loose for the dropping of the front axle. Now there is a vent tube right here. Just kind of reach up to the frame and try to undo that vent tube from the frame so you don't rip it or break it. And then I think we can start undoing this axle. I have a feeling we're going to want a jack underneath this, but I'm going to break these bolts loose first and make sure that they're actually going to come loose for me. Alright, I got a pile of hardware there, which is going to go in a pan in a second. But here we go. We got these two right here. I had to use a 19 on the heads. 3/4 on them nuts right there. It worked out just fine. 2 more 19s right there. Now the back side of those is very difficult to reach. You got to go, kind of snake your hand up the left side of the differentials now here around the starter. And get up there and put your wrench on there. It works, but it's a pain. I did end up using an adjustable wrench. It's in here somewhere. On this side, yes, I know, horrible, bad, no mechanic will do that, but you know, it worked. I did what I had to do. There's 2 15 mils right here I had to take out. Now, the reason the axle is not laying on my head is because these are not backed all the way out. The nuts are off, but I'm gonna have to pound those bolts out, so I'll support this thing with a jack and then pound those out in a second. I do have another concern. Here's the oil pan. Right there, looks like a plate of some sort on top of the diff. There's either 2 or 3 bolts. I feel like I'm going to have to pull those bolts to free the axle from whatever in the world that is. So that'll be interesting to get into there and get those off. Before I can pound those bolts out and lower this thing, I think there's one more bolt I got to take out. Probably can't even see it. It's right above where the light's at. It's 5/8. Gonna pull that out. Hopefully it's the last thing I got to pull. I think that's it. I have looked all over this axle. I was wrong. There wasn't 1 bolt up there. There were 2. 2 of these. Hopefully we're ready to start dropping this axle. This is not going to be fun. Alright, here's the point where things get a little bit sketchy. Now I got the jack supporting the right side of the axle. With the nuts out, you just keep on cranking these bolts loose. Once they come out, I'll have to support the right side on a stand and move the jack over here to the center, the differential itself, to get the rest of the other 2 big bolts out. And then will be the fun part, the sketchy, really sketchy part of lowering it to the ground. Okay, so I had to pull a 3rd bolt out of there. You see 1, 2, 3 holes right there. I had to pull a 3rd bolt out of there, and that axle still did not want to fall. I'm thinking, I've looked all around and I started to work at it with my pry bar. I think it just needs a little bit of encouragement. Give the jack a little bit more, just absolute hair more space so I can work this axle down. I think it just needs a little bit of encouragement with the pry bar. So yeah, I think that's it. It seems to be budging. Wow, it was holding itself up there just from the tightness of all that. That's wonderful. So little by little, I'm going to lower the jack just a hair more, a literal hair, and little by little I'm going to bring this thing down. I'm fixing to go inside and get me an extra set of hands for this, because this is really sketchy. Maybe I can ring the bell and get them out here. I love that. I'm such a child. Well, I ended that last clip, lowered the jack another hair, and gave it 1 more working with the pry bar, and it kind of dropped on the jack as if it was absolutely totally loose. So let's very slowly start cranking the jack down, and here it goes. I don't know if you can tell, but no, are we still? Oh, we're still stuck with friction. It's coming, but my goodness. A few whacks of the hammer, even if it is in the upward direction, is helping it to keep moving a little bit. Give the jack a little bit more. Like, this is the slowest, this might be the slowest axle drop anyone's ever seen. I don't know. It's not the slowest one I've ever seen, because this is the only one I've ever seen. I've never done this before. There's a chance that might also be doing it. That yoke is sitting on that cross member. Not a big deal. I might just have to pull the jack back. I'm going to go get my other pair of hands. There it is. The front axle is out. Not as heavy as I feared it would be, but my God, what a pain. Now that I've removed the entire front drive line, we can start on the oil pan. Gaze upon the 4-wheel drive Dodge Dakota without a front axle. Good Lord, that was an absolute pain. So I thought I was going to have to pull a 3rd bolt up there. That bolt actually ended up not having anything to do with the axle staying up. I pulled that out because I was afraid that's what was keeping the axle from dropping. It was literally just the friction of it being sandwiched in that area right there. So I'll put that bolt back before I put the axle back up. That's fine, that's not a big deal. Tempting to change the starter out, even though it's perfectly good, just because I'm here. But I don't have starter money right now, so unfortunately I cannot give in to said temptation. Now, let's see if I gotta pull anything else off to use those oil pan bolts, and it's looking like the answer is yes. It looks like I gotta pull this mess right here off. This, I don't know even what this is supposed to be. Somebody tell me. I'm not really sure why this is here. But it's this plate that's shaped kind of funny. Looks like you got a couple of bolts right here, and one right there, and one right there. I don't think that has anything to do with motor mounts. I don't know, I might still want to support the engine while doing that. We'll see. Yeah, I'm definitely learning as I do this. Put that third bolt back in, a good thing I did, because it turns out that is the motor mount through bolt. And one thing I was trying absolutely not to do on this job was raise the engine, which someone in the Facebook group said, well, according to the service manual, you have to do both. Raise the engine and drop the axle. I don't think so. So, motor mount reattached. So I put those two smaller bolts back in because they are part of mounting the motor. So just want to make sure those are still in there. The two larger ones in the back I put back just for safekeeping, so I don't have to keep track of as many bolts. Now on the other side, there is another single large bolt right there, and then there's another smaller one. But that main motor mount through bolt is in the way of getting to that, so I'm not going to bother removing this particular plate. It does look like, however, I can get to all the oil pan bolts with this plate in place. God, I hope. So, next step, drain the oil pan. Well, oil's drained out and it's a bit darker than I anticipated. A lot darker than I anticipated. That stuff got dirty quick. I haven't even put any miles on this. I've only run it a little bit. Well, it says put fresh oil in it anyway, so we're gonna get fresh oil. So it's literally gonna have 2 oil changes back to back with maybe a mile on this oil and some idle time, but still not much. Oh well, better have fresh oil with new parts. Now the oil's drained, let's get to taking this oil pan down. Now you can see there's bolts all up and down both sides of this oil pan. Obviously, I think pretty much everyone knows that that's how that works. Now, much like with head gaskets or intake manifolds, there's a tightening sequence for this. The book says when you go back to tighten them, you want to alternate side to side, starting at the ends, making your way towards the center. So, that being said, what I'm going to do to take this off is do the reverse of that. I'm going to start in the center, alternate side to side, going back end to end. It doesn't say I have to do that, but I'm deciding to do that just to be safe. It may not be necessary, but hey, it's an extra precaution that I don't mind taking. These are 1/2-inch bolts, and you're going to need a pretty long extension. And I have one of those right here, a pretty long extension. I actually have 2 of them. This one's not quite as long, but I think that one's going to be better. So this one goes back in the pan. 1/2-inch bolts with a big old extension. All right, 18 oil pan bolts in total have been removed. They are accounted for. And honestly, I don't think that this is going to be a pain to get this pan off because it already feels incredibly loose. I mean, obviously all the bolts are out, but still, it's like you expect you might have to hit it with a mallet or something. Honestly, I don't think that's going to be the case here. It might be. I don't know. Maybe with my fist. Oh yeah, this is not going to take much at all. This is going to be beautiful. It's going to be a little bit to work it down around the transmission and these transmission cooler lines, but I don't think it's going to be that big a deal. I'm going to go and get this thing down off camera. That way I can use my hands. And another piece has come off, the steering crosslink, because I needed even more clearance to get this oil pan down. I swear to God. I'm taking apart my front end, which I redid like 3 years ago. Anyway, here's hoping this thing comes down now. It ought to. Well, as hard as I tried to not pick the engine up, I'm gonna have to. So the oil pan is loose. Well, it was. I put 2 bolts in it to hold it back up for now. The oil pan is loose, but the lip around it in the back kind of fits up in a recess. I can't show it to you, it's too dark. It's recess in this front plate of the transmission, so it won't drop that way. And then the front lips are hindered by these here transmission cooler lines, and I've tried every way I can think to move this thing around, shift it, shake it, tweak it, whatever, to get it out of there. It ain't happening. so I'm gonna have to lift the engine at least a few inches. I think the radiator hoses are long enough to do that without actually having to pull them and drain the system. We got two big through bolts, one on each side for the motor mount. We'll just pull those out, lift that thing right up. I'm pretty sure I'm probably going to have to undo the transmission mount back there just because, well, it's kind of attached to the engine. Two bolts hold that to the cross member. I'll pick that up. My goal here is to pick the engine up enough to get the oil pan out and then set it back down on the mounts so that I can at least close the hood, because for me, no major job takes a short enough amount of time to be able to leave the hood open. I might have to come back to it in a day or two. Who knows? That's how it rolls around here. Have the engine hoist out of the shed. That was fun. Same hoist from when I pulled the Chevy's engine out. Lord, so I got the motor mount through bolts out. What I did instead was, instead of taking these small bolts right here, there's actually 3 of them. Instead of taking those out, I took the big motor mount through bolts out. I don't know how well you can see it, but that hole I'm shining the light directly on, that's where the big through bolts go in for the motor mount. I decided to take those out instead, which is fine. But then on top of each motor mount is this nut right here. God, that is really blown out. That nut right there. Also make sure you take those off, because those go through both halves of the motor mount. And then I think I can get it lifted, because I got the transmission mount bolts out as well. Those are 1/2 inch. There's 2 of them. There's a nut and a bolt. If I get those out, hopefully we're ready to lift this engine up enough to get that oil pan off. This is a heck of a process just to lift this thing a few inches. Well, as you can see right there, we are successfully lifting the motor. That's probably 1 inch at this point. I kind of want to see if that inch is going to be enough. Let's get down there, try to get that pan off. When you're doing a job like this, make sure to double check your progress, your work. And then when you're done doing that, make sure you triple check it. See right here, right there, that bolt holds a transmission cooler line set to the engine. I tried to lift this thing to get more clearance and it didn't work because I didn't notice that. So now I have to detach those lines, and that looks mighty rusty. Okay, so what I'm trying to point the camera at is, you can probably see a very nasty grease-caked C-shaped bracket looking thing down there. I'm trying to put the light on as best I can. This is from above. That has either 1 or 2 nuts holding it on. That is also connected to the transcooler lines. That also needs to come off. That is going to be hell to reach. To do it from up top, you might want to pull the serpentine belt off. I really don't want to do that. I'm going to keep trying to get it from the bottom. But that's an absolute pain. I mean, if you're getting it from the bottom, you're not going to be able to actually look at it when you're doing the work. So I can't tell if that's 1 or 2 until I get it cleaned up and off. It's probably 2. And they look like 1/2 inch, but I'm not entirely sure. Alright, so you see there's that C-shaped bracket. Sort of C-shaped. It's the same one I showed you. It was definitely 2 nuts on those 2 studs. They are actually 9/16, at least that's what worked for me. Now that that's off, now let's see if I can get that freaking oil pan off. I am going to raise the engine up a few inches just to make it a bit easier, but I hope this is it. The fun continues. So I pulled the starter. It's kind of precariously dangling. I'm gonna have to tie that up or something, or take the wires off, whatever. Anyway, there's a plate right here on the front of the transmission that obviously covers up the flex plate. Luckily it doesn't go all the way up behind the engine. And pull the starter off, and then these bolt holes right here were for these bolts that I put back for safekeeping. And then I got a couple of what I believe are 7/16 right here, and maybe another one right there. And for some reason that one is loose. Why are there so many loose bolts on my truck? Anyway, hopefully getting that plate off will allow me to get this pan down. This is insane. I've already cleared the trans lines up front. Every time I think I've found the final boss, there's another one. There it is. Oil pan is finally off. That thing was indeed the final boss. And look, in the last video, we saw the top of the pistons. In this video, we get to see the bottom of the pistons. That's kind of funny. I should have pulled the dipstick. Oops-a-daisy. I'll pull that before I continue doing any work. Should have pulled the dipstick first. Not a big deal. Just like I did with the push rods in the last video, I realized as I was pulling this that I Forgot. Anyway, check this out. Yep, just as everybody said, that oil pickup screen is caked. Oh my God. Look, there's a small part right there that isn't. Otherwise, oh my God. That's horrible. The rest of the rotating assembly looks nice, actually. There's not really any sludge all over that. There's really, actually, not a lot of sludge in the oil pan. I will try to get that degreased and cleaned out and make sure there's no crap in it. I think I figured out where the dipstick goes. That's kind of cool. That looks like a dipstick channel. Huh. Didn't realize that. That's kind of cool. But anyway, I'll try to get that cleaned out, degreased, make sure there's no actual garbage in there. And on a different day this week or next, or God, who the heck only knows when, we'll get this pump and screen changed. Oh my, look at that. That's horrible. To get your oil pump off, it is held on by two 14mm bolts, one right here, one right here. Those are 14s. Get you an extension and pull those bolts out. All right, see when those bolts come out, they're going to be a little bit nasty. Have to clean those up before we put them back in. And now those bolts are out, we should be able to wiggle this thing free. Actually, barely any wiggling required. I probably should have put a drain pan under here. This might get messy. Okay, not too bad. I saw the drips, I'm like, oh man, I should have put a pan under here, but it's fine. There's a little bit of oil on the ground. I'll do something. Nah, some cat litter will take care of that. Get a better shot of that. There is still oil in the pump, so I'll very carefully take this thing out from under the truck and pour it out in the pan. But there we are, oil pump removed. Alright, so here's our new setup. We have the brand new Melling oil pump. It's your Melling M72. That's the oil pump that goes in this truck. And your pickup tube, the Melling 200S. You're going to screw your oil pickup tube into the pump right here until it is tight and clocked correctly. So let me bring the old one over here so we can compare. As you can see, they look pretty much the same. You want this pickup screen to be as level with the bottom of the oil pump as you can. See how it looks right here. My wide angle lens may not be helping there. It's a GoPro, sorry. Get over it. Now, I had been wondering about the threads right here. Do I need to put any kind of thread sealer on them? Maybe Teflon tape, maybe pipe dope, whatever, thread locker. I looked all over the internet, and everything from, yeah, go ahead and use the tape, to no, use liquid or thick sealer, to don't use anything at all because they're tapered threads, to don't use pipe tape because you might get shreds in the oil system, and don't use anything because you might get anything in the oil system, and yada yada yada. So I called up my buddy who's a mechanic and asked him, and he said I wouldn't use anything. And I've seen plenty of people say they've been using nothing for decades and never had an issue. So I think to not risk getting anything into the oil system, I'm going to go with nothing. This is nice and tight, it's clocked correctly. I might pull it back out and just put maybe some thread locker in there just to, you know, keep any engine vibrations from working it loose, although I don't think that's going to be a problem, but that's better safe than sorry. Otherwise, I really don't think I'm going to put anything in this. From what I understand, the tapered threads are supposed to create the seal. Speaking of that old oil pump, I had an idea. If y'all stick around to the end of the video, I'm gonna tear this thing down and see what the insides look like. I'm sure a lot of people are probably like, well, I know what the insides look like, but I kind of want to see it. So if you want to see it, stick around to the end. Once the job's done, I'll tear this thing down. Okay, so off camera I took some of this oil, just some cheap dollar store oil for now. I'll just have this on hand for when I need it. It is the right weight though. So we took and primed the oil pump, poured it into the pickup tube, into the pump. That puts it in the inlet. I also pour some into the outlet right there. Yeah, made a mess. I'll take care of that later. Don't worry about getting it all over the pump. It's literally going to be splashed with oil for his entire life. We're priming this thing to avoid a dry start, which is very, very important. Now, I also brought with me this right here. This is a 5/16 hex, and I used this to verify that the pump does indeed turn. You actually kind of see oil movement there, kind of cool. Verify the pump does indeed turn. Now, if you look at the instructions that come with this pump, it says very clearly to make sure that this part right here is fully and completely seated, nice and tight, before you start tightening bolts down. Because if it's not perfectly seated, you could destroy the pump or the pump drive shaft, which also turns the distributor. or destroy the engine entirely. So do make sure this thing is completely and perfectly seated before you start tightening down bolts. I also have the gasket that was included with the pump. Just lays on there like that. That's a rough matchup. Let's get this thing installed. Alright, so this pump is in place. It seems to be seated up in there as far and as good as it possibly can be. I even gave it a few taps with the rubber mallet after I got the bolts started to see if it would go up any further, and it doesn't. So hopefully that is perfectly seated. It appears to be, so here's hoping. I put the 2 bolts in just for a little bit of added reassurance. I did put a couple dabs of red thread lock on them, red thread lock right here. I also put a few dabs here on the threads for the pickup tube, although I'm going with not sealing it. I don't want it to move. It shouldn't, but just in case, I'll put a few dabs of the red thread lock on that as well. Now, we're going to take our torque wrench right here. It is set to 30 foot-pound, and we're going to torque these bolts down to 30. And there you have it. The oil pump is now completely installed. It has been primed, it has been torqued. Now we begin the process of reassembly. And we'll start with this gasket. Oh my god. Maybe I shouldn't have put the pump on yet. I might be taking that back down. We'll see. But we'll start by removing this old oil pan gasket that's hanging on here. Oh boy, that is nasty. Here we go. Yeah, down here in the shed now where I stuck the oil pan so it didn't get rained in, because it does that a lot around here apparently. There was a little bit of oil left in the bottom. You can see where I kind of drained that into the pan down there. Maybe a pint or so, if that. Looking in here, that is actually a bit nastier than I thought. There is definitely a good bit of sludge in here. It looks like there's even some loose material. That's fun. So yeah, it's gonna take a minute to clean this thing out. Oh yeah, there's chunks in that. There's chunks in that. That is not beautiful. So I'm gonna take some time off camera to clean this thing off, to clean the thing out, get this mating surface all cleaned up and smooth and ready to go back on the truck. This might take me a minute, so it's probably gonna be the last thing I do for today. Almost ready to put the oil pan back on. I cleaned up the mating surface on the block. I cleaned up the oil pan really nice. Check this thing out. That thing was filthy inside. It had all kinds of crud in it. Got that cleaned out with some degreaser. Don't worry about that color. I even cleaned the outside as best I could so it doesn't suck so much to touch. So right now I'm just coming up in here and getting some of this oily, greasy stuff out of these bolt holes. They're not going to be perfect. It'll be a lot better. And then we'll start getting this pan and gasket into place. Alright, now we're ready to start putting the oil pan into place. But first thing we gotta do is we gotta put some RTV up in here. Now, not everywhere. The book clearly states, as well as the Felt Pro people on their own YouTube channel, this is where they want you to put it. First of all, make sure to put a bead along this parting line right here. This is the engine block and the timing cover. This is kind of a step up. It's barely there. It's more so on this side actually. You can barely see it, but there is a very small step up right there. And of course, there's a gap between 2 different metal parts. So, put a bead here on the parting line. Then we're going to apply a bead in all 4 corners. These are kind of sharp corners, almost a perfect 90 degree. So we're going to put one in this corner, opposite of that, and then put one in this corner and this corner right here. About a 1/4 inch or so bead should be fine according to the guys on the Felt Pro YouTube channel. So we'll get that on there and then I'll show you the gasket. From what I gather from the instructions, that is what that should look like there. You got it along that parting line and there in the corner. Yeah, the application wasn't as great over here. These lines made it very awkward, these transmission lines. It's a lot nicer over here. And then you got in those 2 corners right there. Always double check your work, because a piece of old gasket material did try to sneak its way in there. Had to scrape that off with a screwdriver. Yes, it's blue. Some may think it needs to be black. I had blue on hand and my mechanic friend said go for it, so I'm going for it. Alright, so got the engine lifted up a few inches again. Let me show you here on the side. You can see maybe right there. You can see the mount, the top bolt for the mount, the top stud. You can see it's up probably almost 2 full inches. That should be enough. I hope it's enough. If not, I think I can raise it a little bit more. I don't want to go too much though. Side note, I did not think about the fan hitting the shroud. This one luckily is already broken, so I'm not too worried about it. I do have another used one from the pull apart ready to go on here eventually. Oil pan gasket is setting in place right now. This only goes on one way. This wider part here goes towards the front of the pan. So again, it is Fill Pro. There's your part number right there. You want to pause that and search that out if you're doing this job. So we're going to go ahead and get up underneath here and really carefully lift this thing up into place. Try not to disturb that gasket. Stick a few bolts in there hand tight, and then we'll get to torquing them down. I'm going to do all that off camera since I don't really have a good way to mount it, and I'm definitely going to need both hands. I wonder if I can get anybody to build me a garage. These are less than ideal working conditions. Oh well. Oh man, what a pain. But oil pan is in place. I'm going around inspecting through the holes, making sure that the gasket isn't out of place. It looks good. The rear, I can't tell. By the time you get it up in there, you really can't tell if it's jumped out of place or not. So say a prayer for me, hoping that is still in place. It should be though. And then our front one here, our front section is very nicely in place. It actually has lips, front and rear, or in and out, whatever you want to say, to make sure it stays in place. So with that being said, I'm going to run all these bolts in here finger tight, and then we'll get to torquing. All right, once all the bolts are in, you should have 18 bolts in there. If you have less than 18, please, dear God, find your bolts. Now these are going to get torqued to 200 inch-pound. And how we're going to do this is you're going to start at one end, you're going to alternate. So you're going to go 1, 2, then you're going to jump to the other end, 3, 4. Starting at one end, then the other, alternating side to side, working towards the center, 200 inch-pounds. Now, the math on that for foot-pounds is about 16.6, so say 16.5. I do have a 1/4 inch drive, inch-pounds torque wrench, and one 3-inch long 1/4 inch drive adapter. I don't know if that's going to work. I may have to go ahead and put 16.5 on the larger torque wrench. Now, if you do have to do that, keep in mind the clicks are going to be very subtle, so do watch out for them. It should work out. It worked out on the valve covers. I had to do the same thing. So let's go and get these things torqued down, 200 inch-pounds or about 16.5 foot-pounds. And there we have it, 18 bolts torqued in sequence, once again side to side, end for end. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so on towards the center. Torqued and checked one more time. They are torqued to 200 inch-pounds or right around 16.6 foot-pounds. Now I think I'll drop this engine back down and get it bolted back down and begin the reassembly of the truck. Okay, so I made the decision to add an extra step in here while I'm in here. So I got the engine hoist set up again to where it's just supporting the weight of the engine. I'm going to change up these motor mounts. This one here, of course, is your right side. Here, of course, is your left side. Got our Rock Auto, got a couple of new ones. I've got the hoist supporting the weight of the engine, and if I need to, I'll lift it up more, just so I can change these out one mount at a time. So here's the big through bolt that actually holds the engine to the mount. This here holds the mount itself to the frame. You can see the standoffs on the frame right here. Got the same situation over here. Mount attaches to the frame, then engine attaches to the mount. Then you got this series of holes right here on each one, which is where the axle mounts to. The reason I decided to go ahead and do this while I'm in here is because these are not just engine mounts, they're also mounts for the front axle. All right, new motor mounts are in, and let me tell you how sketchy that was lining up a brand new motor mount on all this old stuff. That was sketchy. It involved an engine hoist. It involved the other jack over there that he's putting away. It involved this giant ratchet being used as a push rod, and said giant ratchet trying to take me out of the chest. But they are in, everything, all through bolts are in, not fully tightened. I'm not doing that until I get the axle mounted and everything lined up, and then I'll do the final tightening on everything all at once, and I will absolutely just bury the torque on those. I think I can start reassembling things now. Oh my God, that was so sketchy. All right, so we begin reassembly. The starter is reattached, it's right there. These two braces between the engine and transmission, this one here and this one here, are both attached. And the cooler lines for the transmission have been reattached to the front of the engine. My God. I think I'll reassess, but I'm pretty sure the next step is we're gonna put the axle up. The axle mounts here and here. and here. And actually, this hole and this hole as well. There's actually a lot of places where that axle bolts to. Moving right along here, we got the steering linkage all back together, our cross link and our tie rod ends back on, torqued down and cotter pins in. It's starting to look like a complete truck now. We just got to reconnect the drive shaft. I swear to God, I keep forgetting that. Put the bolts back in for the trans mount, get these axles back in, wheels on, and we're getting ever closer to starting this thing up. All right, so I came underneath, put the bolts back into the transmission mount where I pulled them off earlier. So they're in there now. I did notice the cross member appears to be bent, like it got hit on something, and my lens keeps fogging up. I literally just walked outside with the camera. But as I got to looking around, I made the decision that that front drive shaft is coming back off because there's a slight problem with my transfer case. I knew there was an issue somewhere in the four-wheel drive system because it makes nasty noise. I think I know what the problem is. So this is the problem for me, but for you guys, more Dakota content. Yay! This thing is completely buttoned up. I got it full of oil. Need to put that cap back on. That was almost a stupid move. We're full of oil. Belts put back on where I had it off for engine lifting. Trust me, it made a lot of, actually it wasn't even for engine lifting, but it made some things easier. Brand new oil filter, switched over to Wicks. Everything is on, it is on the ground, wheels are on, all the nuts are torqued down, front drive shaft removed, so it has been converted to a rear wheel drive. Let's see if this thing will start or if I need to jump it. I'm sure it needs to pump some gas up. It needs to be jumped. All right, wifey's car coming in clutch. Let's see now if we can start this baby up. Now that's the sound, the ticket sound from before. Let's see if it clears up as the oil pumps up. Oh, see? Look at that. There's still something a little bit faint. Hopefully that goes away. There might have been a little bit of damage from when it wasn't getting oil. And would you look at that? We have oil pressure. We have oil pressure. Oh my God, that is so much better. Hopefully that lighter tick clears up. It's so light though. I'm almost not worried about it. That loud top end tick before it pumps the oil up, that is gone. So I kind of expected that much. Let's take these cables off. And I'm just gonna go around and check the engine bay, make sure nothing is bad. Nothing should be causing any problems up top. And this actually sounds really good. Let's go down below though, because that's where we want to check and make sure that nothing is leaking anywhere. It's gonna be hard to see. Everything is hard to see under here. Yeah, everything is hard to see under here. Alright, looking around the oil pan. It's gonna be hard for me to do that and put it on camera, but looking around the oil pan and the drain bolt, looks clean. No more mess than was already on the truck to begin with. And although it should be good anyway, we're gonna check the oil filter area, and that looks great. Everything looks nice and tight. You can actually see the blue pan gasket right there in between. Everything looks nice. Let me check the one area I was most concerned about, and that's gonna be here on the back side of the oil pan. I couldn't tell if that seal went into place right, but it all looks good. That stuff on that cover plate, no, I didn't clean it off. I didn't feel like it, honestly. It's fine. It's called rust prevention or whatever. But hey, there's no new mess coming out of here. This is beautiful. Oh man, even that light ticking, the lightest one I heard, has also cleared up. I know you can't see anything, it's dark as can be. This thing sounds just as healthy as it did before everything started breaking. You know what time it is. It is time to test drive this baby. Oh, I missed that noise. Okay, did I smack something underneath there? This is not good. This is too smooth. It's not doing anything. That means we're not test driving this thing today. I'm gonna have to check the shift linkage. I bet I know what happened. It might have happened when I was dragging the drive shaft out. Well, at least I know she runs. We'll close her up, we'll look at it. Not tonight, it's too dark outside, it's too late. And look right there. There it is. Exactly what I thought. So I'm pretty sure there's a bushing or something that's supposed to go right here. And that's supposed to sit in there. That is actually part of the shift linkage. I might try to find something to put over this just to keep it from doing that again, at least temporarily. So let me do that if I can find something, and then we'll see if we can put it in gear now. I'll bet you that's exactly what happened. My theory was when I was pulling the front drive shaft out through here, I knocked something off, but I'm not so certain. That's kind of a distance between those two things. Anyway, let's try this out. And temporary solution acquired. Borrowed a pin from the engine hoist till I can get something a bit more permanent. Now we can try a test drive, I hope. Alrighty, y'all. We're finally doing it. It's been over a year since this truck has been on a public road.
I'm scared for my life.
Children, I swear. Oh yeah, baby. Gosh, you run so good. I have a feeling I still have that annoying injector 8 problem, but that had nothing to do with the head going because that happened on cylinder 4, not cylinder 8. But although we've only been out for a couple of minutes, so far, great shakedown run. Alright, so we put a little bit of gas in her because she was bone dry. We're running about 55, 60 mile an hour down the highway. This thing sounds and runs great. Oh, I'm so happy. So yes, taking the front drive shaft off was absolutely the right call. I don't hear the differential anymore. I started hearing a little bit of what sounded like maybe a valve tick or something. Maybe something got slightly damaged when the oil pressure was bad. But other than that, it runs great. Right now, the number 8 injector isn't acting up. It'll probably act up again before too long. That's a problem I'm going to have to figure out another time if I even can. But she's back, baby. It's alive! All right. And so that closes the book on yet another repair on my 1994 Dodge Dakota. SLT, 4-wheel drive, temporarily converted to 2-wheel drive. So now you know if you have a 4-wheel drive Dakota and you think you might need to do an oil pump, hopefully this video helps you know how to do it and is a nice guide. Obviously, I'm not a professional, I'm not a mechanic, so maybe I didn't do everything perfect, but I did it right and it works. And hopefully this will help you if you have to do the job. And now you see what a pain it can be to do this job. Hopefully this video wasn't too long, although I have a weird feeling it is because some of my major repair videos can get a little bit long. So if it is, I'm sorry, but hey, it is what it is. If you made it this far though, remember what I said earlier, stick around if you do want to see the disassembly of the old oil pump. I'll kind of make that a after the outro type of content for you guys if you want to stick around and look at that. But if you don't care, you don't want to see it, then you can end it right here. Thanks y'all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it and you learned something today. I know I learned a lot doing this job, and I put a lot of work into this thing. So I'm very happy to have it back on the road. If you did enjoy this video, you want to see the rest of what I've done on this truck, go check out the main channel page. I have a playlist of this Dodge Dakota on that page. I also have lots of other videos if you want to see those too. Like what you see, consider subscribing, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. This is not the last repair on this Dakota. Alright, now for that bonus footage I promised y'all if you stuck around past the outro of the video. Welcome to that. Here we're going to take apart this oil pump because, well, I've never been inside of one either. Now, transparency, it's been months since the outro. A few anyways. And, yeah, I kind of finished the job, put the truck back together, tossed this thing aside, and then life took over, and it's been a while. So this thing is covered in crap, because when I say I tossed it aside, it literally just sat up underneath the edge of my porch for like 3 or 4 months. So anyway, let's take this thing apart. So you can see right here, that's the screen. That's the part that caused all the problems with getting stopped up. But if you're going to get in here and you're going to change out the pickup tube, you're going to change the oil pump too. Because you're in there, you took the oil pan off, just do it all. So anyway, let's get this thing took apart. I'm actually going to start by trying to get this oil pickup tube off there. You can see it is threaded. It's just like the new one. It is threaded. It's forward threaded. So let me see if I can't crank that off. I do not have my tripod or anything on me in the shed. So I'm going to do that off camera. Give me a second. All right, pickup tube is off. And yes, it took pry bar to break that thing loose because obviously it's been on there for 30 years. It was stuck. See, looking down in the hole there, I don't know if we can even see in the hole, but I'm going to try. I don't think it's possible to film it Not really a lot to see looking in the hole. Not a lot that you can see. Down here, of course, is the part right here. My light's shining directly on that attaches to the drive inside the engine that runs off the camshaft or crankshaft. I can't remember which one it runs off of. And check out the oil coming out of this thing. Ooh, baby. Somehow that doesn't look like oil. It looks like dark honey. But there is still oil in this pump. This pad is ruined. But I really wasn't counting on it to stay good. So I guess the next step is to get these bolts off. I'm not really sure what the size is. Give me a second. So I got all the bolts out, and these are 7/16, and you see how these don't have very tall heads. I'm pretty sure these were never intended to be removed. I mean, obviously, you don't take the pump apart, you replace it. But I got them out. I tried it with an open end wrench. That didn't cut it, so my ratchet did it. Now I'm going to see if this cover plate just comes right off or if I need to give it a smack or something. Nope, right off. Cool. All right, so here we are. You can see looks like there's some veins. I guess you call them veins. I'm not really sure. But that plate's off, and here it is. This is the simplest thing you could possibly hope for right here. I mean, as it turns, you see what happens as it turns. Get a smaller 4-lobe gear. Kind of makes its way into the negative spaces of the 5 lobes there. That's cool. Very, very simple. And I kind of figured it would be this simple. This is pretty much a larger version of the oil pump inside the engine of my Briggs & Stratton lawnmower engine up there. Just a larger version. Oil pumps are drop-dead simple devices. I mean, very simple technology, and yet very effective. Let me see if I can... I don't know if I can pop that thing out of there or not. That part may not be so easy. I'm going to see if I can pop that inner gear out. Alright, so I just grabbed my Torx here. This guy right here, you can see the end of it's dirty as can be. And my rubber mallet. Stuck it in the end here and hammered this out. And here is the full shaft with the inner gear on it. Really no need to do that, but it's like, why not? So it's kind of cool. So the path the oil takes is it comes through the pickup tube in here, and your thing spins. It pulls the oil through here, spins it, pushes it through this area right here, and it comes out right here. This is the part that actually mounts to the engine. So very, very simple, yet really cool to see the inside of this thing. I don't know. So there you go. That is the oil pump from a 5.2 liter or a 318 Magnum V8 Dodge engine from the 90s. Not a lot to see, really. It's a very simple device, but kind of cool to see the inside of that. And if you did stick around for the bonus content merely to tell me, my God, you idiot, did you think you were going to see anything else? Well, good for you. Like I said, I kind of expected this, and I'm sure a lot of people did too, but it's still really cool to see the inside of it. I've never seen the inside of an oil pump before, so kind of cool. I wonder if I can pull this part out, because this larger outer gear, yeah. If I can get it all the way out. There it is. Yeah, check it out. Okay, cool. That's an even better view now of how this thing works, the path that the oil takes. That's an awfully shiny part inside there. That's interesting. Has to do with that on the end. Not really sure. Maybe that's a plug. Maybe these things could have been used in different configurations. Who knows? But there you go. In, out. Kind of cool. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this bonus content. I've never done bonus content before, so this is my first one. Hope you enjoyed it. If you were curious, we have taken care of that curiosity. Maybe I'll try to do a little bit more bonus content like this in the future. Who knows? But that was cool. So anyways, hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was kind of cool. Anyways, make sure you like, share, subscribe, and tune in for more 94 Dodge Dakota repairs, because we ain't done. Later.